Pamela Norton, thank you for joining me in this Lingofest interview. I'm really grateful that you were able to make the time.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am certainly in awe of your expertise and experience as an inventor, and with all the many patents that you've had, and the gift of Alexa that you have in the world. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I do appreciate them. So, so these conversations that I'm having with folks who are delving into NFTs, most of them know a lot more than I do about what this is all about. It's a new thing as such in terms of the mainstream. It's been around for, like, I don't know, 2014 maybe, right, for the cutting edge folks out there. But I think last year it sort of bubbled up all the way to the consciousness where even a CNN is talking about it. So it means that now it has reached that that level of awareness. And so I'm doing these interviews basically to engage folks who are actually doing things with beyond talk, actually engaging. So I want to give you like a few minutes to tell us about your company. And in
Sure.
what ways are you involved with NFTs?
Yes. Well, thank you. So I went down the rabbit hole, as I say, in 2015 and making some connections because I was very interested in understanding more about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and also concerned about the problem we have in the lack of trust, transparency, and security in our world. So I founded Borsetta in 2015 based on that premise. Borsetta means coin purse in Italian. So it was actually a very intentional name. And my vision was at the time, and still is, to empower women globally with a digital purse. Because everyone's talking about digital wallets, and I use it as a metaphor to, on this journey to educate women that you will have, everything will reside in your purse, right? Your health information, your home information, your education, and there will be tokens, which means it's a way to assign value to any type of asset, right? So I then went down the path of developing a very significant patent that we're in the process of being awarded this year, and we are launching a company called Title Chain, and Title Chain is a next generation asset ownership, right? So when you talk about NFTs, what's really interesting and unique about it, and this is very described in detail in my patent, is that we have for the first time the ability to connect a unique identifier, right? One of a kind. So you and I are one of a kind. Our voice, our DNA, everything about us is one of a kind. And so we all should have the ability to NFT ourselves, right? So at the foundational level, right, for people to understand, right? So me, myself, and I, and everything about me is unique, right? And what I own is unique, and what information I have in my mind, my ideas are unique, right? So I should be able to patent my ideas, right? I should be able to create a secret NFT for for projects that I want to develop, right? So that's kind of at the core, right? So now we have technology today that can represent all of our intangible assets, which means, so we think about your house today, right? You have a house title and you have a car title, right? So you can showcase that you have ownership rights to that, right? And so now we have software that can be embedded really in the internet, right? So the internet 3.0 is this fusion of our physical world to a digital one, right? As well as the metaverse, right? So we have kind of three worlds.
Yep.
And so the Web3, this Internet 3, has money embedded in it, right? Value embedded, right?
Mhm.
So instead of being outside the system today with paper, right? We're transacting with paper, and we need all these middlemen to make decisions for us and tell us what to do, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Now
With the
we are,
fees.
yeah,
With the
exactly.
fees, yeah.
So now we're buying coins, tokens, right? That in essence do the job for us because we don't trust anyone, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, so when you understand that we're using software now to help make decisions, help us value more of our assets. So my purse, my, you know, Pamela purse should not only have my house title, my car title, I have my business assets, right? And so
Mm.
for a business, you know, 80% of businesses today, there are intangible assets, right? It's software, it's licensing, it's royalties. They don't reside, they, you know, our accounting system today doesn't work really well to be able to value those assets.
Yep.
So you're a prolific, you know, inventor, right? You know, an owner of a lot of patents, right? There's a value to those patents, and there is a way that we can value those patents that can now reside on your books, right? Because you can attach royalties and licenses, and you are the authenticated owner of this unique voice recognition application, right? So all of those licenses should be attached to that NFT, right? So anyone who is approved and validated, right, to be able to have your unique IP is paying for it. And it's a instant transaction, right? However you know, whatever the executable code is doing, you know, you're being paid, you know, that person, you know, is is authenticated to
Mhm.
buy your IP. Same with a unique piece of art, right? Or
Yep.
and so that's the problem now is that we have, you know, so many people taking advantage. They say, oh, it's on the blockchain, it's trusted. Well, you can have a lot of bad actors
Yeah.
putting bad information on the blockchain. I mean, unfortunately, you know, there's always going to be adversaries and people that
Yeah.
want
Unsavory
to,
people for sure. Yeah.
and you have problems with, you know, it's called rot link. So you
Yep.
think, you know, your image resides in your wallet, and people don't really understand kind of the wallet concept. They think it's like physically like a wallet, even though yes, our bank says we have that amount in our
Mhm.
wallet, and yet they're actually spending that money.
True. True. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really
Yep.
not necessarily sitting in a vault somewhere, right? So, so the concept of an NFT is really quite revolutionary when you look at we have $31 trillion in intangible assets that can now have a connection, a monetary connection to it, and can be transacted and traded and can be loaned against, can be fractionalized, which means many people
Yeah.
can own a percent, just like stocks or shares in a company.
Yeah.
And so,
Before we go there, because I think the audience is already glazing
oh
away.
yeah, sorry. I know I try. I'm like going to
No,
try
no,
to
no,
get back.
it's so
It's
hard,
so
right? Because
hard.
before you know it, you're like talking about fractionalized. But we'll get to that because that's an important
Yes.
concept.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Borsetta. Are you guys doing a wallet
Oh, okay.
service?
Good
Mhm.
question. So what we started out, we started securing high value assets on the blockchain.
Like,
So
for
luxury goods,
example,
yeah, luxury goods. So we
luxury
started
good.
out high value watches and diamonds and so forth. Um, and then we had a very unique opportunity. We designed a system on a chip, right? A little microelectronics chip, as
Mhm.
you know, are embedded in everything. And
Mhm.
they're putting AI into those chips, and those
Mhm.
chips are processing quite a lot of data.
Mhm.
Because we knew if we could be at the chip level, right, in creating an NFT for a chip, because the chip itself not only has a unique ID, but it has unique IP that needs to be protected.
Yep.
And those chips will be integrated in our everyday life, right, into our bodies. For some people don't like that idea, but it's will happen. I will
Well,
have,
I mean,
you know,
if it helps you hear better, or it helps your circulation, it helps your heart. I mean, we can always say, oh, but we don't want chips, but you know what?
Yeah.
You know, if it's going to save my life,
if
I
it's
will
going to
do
help my memory.
Help my memory, right? Please, you know, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So we thought, you know, the importance of creating an NFT for that chip, right? Because, you know, whoever owns the IP, right? There was a lot of IP from ARM and Synopsys and very, you know, international companies that we were able to secure the IP. The design was unique to Borsetta. Then we wanted to demonstrate how we have a title for that chip, right? It's a personal piece of property. And there's some interesting things around property rights, interesting things, as you are aware, around NFTs with, well, copyrights. Hermes just filed a lawsuit against a designer who was designing these Meta Birkin bags that they said infringes on their copyrights. So we're starting to already see a lot of legal implications. And my concern is, you know, anytime you get a lot of regulatory or legal, it really stifles innovation, right? And so what we're trying to showcase is we have a titling process for every type of asset, right? A physical asset has a unique identifier, to a digital asset, to the metaverse. And our titling process, we're focused on patents right now. So anyone who has a patent, there's today in the world, you don't even really know who owns patents, right? So it's a bit of a murky market. So we want to enable people to secure their patents with an NFT, your copyrights, your trademarks, so you can demonstrate that value on your corporate, you know, books, right? So that's really the first area that we're focused now. We're commercializing the technology we've been working on for years. And that's the process we're doing. We're launching Title Chain now, specifically focused on IP, NFT and IP, and creating a titling registry framework. So there is trust and transparency, that people recognize that Title Trust is a trusted registry. We have a very specific archiving process, right? Because from a legal perspective, you need to ensure that that chain of custody, if it needs to be produced in a court, right, that you're able to demonstrate who actually owns this IP, right, and who's actually provisioned to use it. So there's a way to document that chain of custody that the blockchain gives us.
Right.
So we're really trying to ensure that there is a framework that is a global framework, right, that benefits anyone who has a unique ID or has ownership rights, right? We want to ensure that they're able to put it in their wallet or their purse, right?
Yeah.
And
let's let's do this. Let's take I think you mentioned luxury goods, right?
Yeah.
Let's take one specific example where the NFT, where NFTs solve a well-defined problem, and maybe we can walk through that. So I don't know, I own something like what, like a yacht, or do I own a very expensive watch, perhaps? Is that luxury goods that you mean? Okay. And so let's say I do own one of these. Let's say it's a $45,000 watch. I think there are watches that are more expensive than that, and so I don't know how somebody would buy that. But let's say I own one of those. Now, what problem am I solving with NFTs in the context of having or owning this watch?
So in today's world, right, for you to know that you're really buying the authentic watch, you know, back in the day, you went to an authorized dealer, like you actually physically walked in a store, and you had high confidence that that brand was what you were buying, right? You know, and it had a paper certificate, or maybe you got something in an email, right, that said there's a unique number to that watch, right? So now the lines are blurred, right? So now I'm on the internet, I want to buy this watch, I don't know, you know, the internet site says it's legitimate, right? I don't know, or it's a secondary market because I want to buy, it's very exclusive, right? And it's a collectible. So the NFT solves the problem of, if the manufacturer has a process where all the components have been NFT'd, right? Are validated. Every component that went into that watch has a token assigned to the provenance of every element that went in. And now there's a token that says there's a unique ID that has, let's say, 5,000 elements in the watch, right? I don't know. Right? But now I don't need to physically have to walk in that store, right? To know that it's trusted, right? If I can look at the title and I can look at the chain of custody, and I know that I could just feel very confident in buying that product and having it go into my wallet. So now that $250,000 watch that I've just acquired, I have high trust that it's authentic, right? There's no question that it's a knockoff or counterfeit because the title has been verified. It's gone through escrow. Like it's a very official process that we understand in today's world.
Yeah.
We have to replicate it in the NFT world, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to have ownership, right? And I can demonstrate to a bank or whoever that I need. Let's say I'm getting a loan. My portfolio should be reflective of all the things I own, right? And I should be able to get better terms if I'm needing to buy a house or something, because all of those assets have been titled, they're in my wallet, and they're archived in a way that it's tamper-proof, no one can change it, the record. So that's where we just really believe the market needs that type of authentication process that we had in the traditional world that we're not going to have in the digital or the metaverse world, right? And so how do we ensure that people don't get, taken advantage of? And that was really what I set out to solve 5 years ago. And it's been a long journey, right? Because it's a lot of it, as you know, education and
the world is catching up with you. So, but you have that much of a leg up, so that's great. For me, just trying to validate some concepts here. For me, the most compelling thing is being able to trace what happened with with an object, right? Who owned it first and who bought it? Because right now, let's say I was rich and I would buy, I don't know, a Monet. That Monet would have to be bought from an outfit that certifies it, right? And the fact that it's coming from them gives me comfort, right? But I need that middleman, so to speak. But I really don't know. I don't know how the world works in terms of those things. But do I know, from the very beginning, who owned it? All right, probably I don't in the real world, right? Maybe it's for some,
right. No, it's a great question. And currently that's the sort of the disconnect. I mean, with companies like Sotheby's or whatever, they have their paper process, right? They have their reputation, right? That says we've gone through, but they're using a lot of people. It's a lot of humans, right? So we want to move that system to a digital one, right? That is kind of taking humans out of the loop and verifying it so there aren't human errors, right? And you need that validation. That chain of custody is critical, especially for high-end assets. But what it means is you and I could actually do that transaction, right?
Right.
I don't need Sotheby's. Like, I guess I just said that, but
it's okay. It's not a sin, is it?
No, but that's the beauty of this transaction that you and I can have, is we don't really know each other, right? And you're telling me you have this Monet or whatever, we should be able to do a transaction that has code that executes based on our agreement. And I have the ability to go through the chain of custody and know that this title now has been authenticated. It's in escrow now. So everything about the process.
Who owned it, right? Because that thing. Let's say I sold you something and you sold it to somebody, and then you sold it to somebody down the line. And let's say 2 years from now you become very, very famous, right? So now all of a sudden, because they can say, oh, Pamela owned this thing, all of a sudden that thing now becomes much more valuable.
Yes.
Right.
I know, isn't that interesting? It's
right.
Really, yeah. Because now you can really say, hey, Shaquille O'Neal owned this. Like,
yeah, when he was nobody, right? And it was worth nothing much when he was nobody, but then he became somebody, and then sort of anything that was touched by that that person becomes now valuable, right? So I think that's another interesting. My feeling is that we're going to discover really interesting twists like this as it starts to intersect with the real world, right? People start picking it up and using it for all kinds of things. But my last question to you is this: what do you think? I think it's a hard question to answer, but I'm going to ask it. What do you think is going to be the initial killer use case where everybody gets it, right? And it probably is very simple, whatever it may be, like something where they're using NFT to solve something very, very real. Could be like ID, maybe, I don't know. Where people say, oh, we understand NFTs. They're not this very crazy thing. Because I do remember when the internet came out, we engineers, we were just talking about HTTPS and protocols, and everybody was like, oh, internet is complicated, right? But then when the browser came in, right, they understood that the internet is like, the water works and the system and the electrical grid. You don't need to know. All you need to know is you turn the switch on, it works, right? And so I'm thinking maybe at some point, like this crypto, where people are like, oh, I don't understand crypto. At some point, it becomes a thing that everybody understands. Do you have any thoughts on how, what might happen to get us to that point?
So I want people to have in their hands today, like if we could give in their hands today the experience of the one touch Amazon, when you're like, oh, you just touch it, right, and you buy, right? You've reduced all the friction of, oh, what's my password and all that, right? So we need that experience,
right?
And we need the transaction efficiency like a Venmo, right?
Right.
Right, where all of a sudden it doesn't matter, Ahmed, I don't, like, you just tell me I'm going to pay you for this NFT that I'm getting right now in my wallet. I see it, it's in escrow, it's pending. Okay, I've checked everything with it. I'm ready to send it to you. What do you want? You're like, hey, I just want Bitcoin today. Okay. So it does the conversion. It doesn't matter. People don't need to understand crypto or anything. It's just value, what you want, what I want, right? So if we could create an app like that, that just instantly people are like, oh, look at my wallet. Like, wow, in my collectibles, I have like $10,000. In my banking, I have this. And oh, I've just now tokenized everything in my house. So now I'm saving money on insurance because everything I own has a value. And so my insurance company will reduce my insurance, whatever, right? So, they start looking at their personal. When it becomes personal, I think business obviously is the first use case, because when a business can see that, right now, I have a debit and a credit, right? I have a 2-ledger system. Now I have a 3-ledger system. And that third ledger is dynamic. It's alive, right? The value is changing every day based on, what new software licenses I've just sold, or right. So it has to be that aha moment where it makes it so easy. And, hopefully, we can do that with me, myself, and I. We just all tokenize ourselves, and we start seeing how we all bring value to the system, right? And our time is worth something, our ideas are worth something, and there's a pathway to create and to monetize those in ways that we never thought of before. So
I think it's going to be exciting as things evolve. Pamela Norton, thank you so much for making the time. This will be posted, as I mentioned to you, shortly, and everybody will be able to benefit from this conversation.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks. Take care, Pamela. Bye-bye.